and welcome again to another session of the virtual Java user group. And now I hear myself in an echo, which is not a good idea. So let me click that one off. And again, welcome. I'm very pleased with the speaker we have today. But before I will give the word to Mala, because she will be doing the session today, I will just do a brief introduction on today's session and the virtual jug as a whole. So let me briefly share my screen, and well, you see that I have the most amazing slide over here. It says nothing, then welcome to the virtual jug. And again, we are pleased to be here. My name is Brian, and I work for a company called Sneak, which is not important, but I will be your host today. And that means that I will be in charge of the buttons. Mala will do the actual talking because, well, she has a far better story than I will have today. But what we do is, if you have questions during this session, please ask them in the Slack channel. I will come back to that in a second because I have to name our sponsor, which set us up with the whole system, how to broadcast this, and that is Sneak. So thank you, Sneak, for that. But today's session is by Mala Gupta, as I already mentioned, and she will be talking about what is new in Java 14 and 15. And in my opinion, the last part is even more important because I've already tried out 14. I'm actually working with 14, but I'm very curious on what's actually coming in 15 because I didn't have time for that yet. So if you are on Java 8, you probably want to move forward, and because all the fun is afterwards. All the fun will be in 14, 15, and even further than that. But I will not steal your attention from Mala because she will have a great story about this. We will also, JetBrains is one of our sponsors, and we will be giving away 3 JetBrains licenses. I will start a raffle in the Slack channel. So if you're not in the Slack yet, you should be subscribing to that. You can do that by going to virtualjock.com, and there is a link to enter the Slack channel. I will be setting up a raffle which will hold up for the whole weekend, and Monday at noon something, I will pick 3 winners out of that. So if you want a free JetBrains license for instance, IntelliJ IDEA, you can opt for that. And even if you see this afterwards, you got until Monday to apply for that. Well, if you have questions for Mala during this presentation, please go to the Virtual Jug Slack channel and go to the live sessions channel, and please submit your questions over there. I will be looking at the questions and collecting them, and will basically serve them to Mala at an appropriate time. Please share this session. Please share the YouTube link to friends, family, preferably both, maybe even colleagues who can learn something from it, both now and afterwards. And feel free to provide feedback. If you have good feedback, if you love it, please do it directly on Twitter, for instance, to the Virtual Jug, to Mala, to me. If you have comments, please do that in private. But even if you have comments, we would love to hear that because we want to improve every single time. You can do that by connecting to the Virtual Jug directly, or connecting to me personally, or in the Slack channel again, because we have a bunch of Slack channels, and you can ask both me or one of the other presenters or co-organizers of the Virtual Jug. So that was my story, basically. So let me stop sharing and welcome our amazing speaker of today. Welcome, Mala.
Thanks, Brian, for having me. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in the session today. So let me start sharing my screen first. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, I see your screen perfectly clear. So the word is up to you. The whole session is up to you. I will be here to monitor the questions, but the floor is yours, Mala. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So this is my first session with Virtual Jug, and I'm really excited about this one. So in today's session, I would be talking about the new language features in Java 14 and 15. what those features are, why you need them, and how you can use them in your applications. And I would demo that using IntelliJ IDEA, and I would live code them and not using a lot of slides. So let's start with a quick introduction. I work as a developer advocate with JetBrains, and what that essentially means is that I help developers become more awesome by making the best use of IntelliJ IDEA. As developers, using our tools in the best possible manner really helps us to take our skills to the next level. I'm also a Java champion and author of multiple books, as you can see on the slide. I help developers earn Java certifications, which I think is a great way to level up your Java skills. So let's get started with the Java's release cadence and how it is impacting the way we get to know about the new Java features. So Java 8, as we know, was released in March 2014. In September 2017, after 3.5 years, Java 9 was released, which had more than 100 features. But the release cadence changed with Java 9, and now we have a new release every 6 months. And next month, September 2020, we would be having a Java 15. So are there any benefits of the new release cadence? I would say yes, because fewer features in a new Java release, they help us developers to know more about those features. Instead of having to know about 100 new features in a Java release, we get to know about fewer features. We get to focus on the ones that we need. And it's good for the features as well because they get to be used by the developers and they don't really have to wait for a bigger feature to complete before they go to the release. So before we start, in the chat window, it would be great if you could type the latest Java version you have used. So this is a trick. I'm just trying to make sure that you all are awake because for me, it's 9:45 in the evening, PM. And so if you are in the same time zone that as I am, probably you need a couple of questions like this to keep you awake. And of course, I'm from New Delhi, India. So if you would like to share from where you are, that would be great as well. Again, another trick to keep you awake and probably talk with the other attendees in the Slack channel. Okay, so let's start with Java 14. And how do you find out what's new in a Java version? So my go-to resources are the OpenJDK page on, just a moment. Yes, my go-to resources to find out what's new in a Java version is to check out the OpenJDK website. Here you can see a list of all the features, which are the JEPs, Java Enhancement Proposals. When you click on any of these, you would get to know the details. Are you wondering, are there no API changes? And if so, how can you access it? So you can use this link to access how a version has changed from its previous version. So now we're talking about Java 14. So this link would help you understand how Java 13 changes to Java 14 from 13. The changes are highlighted and additions and the removals. So let me, I already have, I guess, this open. Okay, so this is the link which I just had in my slide. And you can actually go to package and see how it has changed. So let's go to, we're talking about Java 14. So you can see record is with a green background. That means it's a new addition. And when you click on it, you can see all the details here. Now, let's go to how Java 14 has changed. And we have Java 15. Now, if I go to the same package and the same class, let me go to record, I see it has modified and it is no longer a addition here. So this is how you can compare different classes, interfaces about the changes, additions, or deletions to any version of your Java. So these are the language features which I would be covering today in Java 14. And let's get started with records. Records introduce a new type in Java. And why would you need a new type? So imagine you go shopping for pants and see that all the pants are of the same size. So depending on your size, they could be big, tight, or small. And if you're lucky enough, they might fit perfectly. If they don't fit, what do? You alter them. And this is what, as developers, we have been doing to model our data in Java. We use a regular Java class and then add methods like constructors, getters, setters, and other methods from the object class like toString, hashcode, and equals. And developers have been using patterns like adding public final fields or omitting to override methods like equals, hashcode to model their data. But these approaches have their disadvantages. So, what do we do? So let's dive right into the code and see how we understand the benefits of records. And I would be using the latest version of IntelliJ IDEA, which is 2020.2. I am using the community version. I am using, the ultimate version, but all the features that I would demonstrate today are also available in the community version, which is free for you to download. So you can go to JetBrains website and download it right now to get started. Okay, so let me go to my editor. Uh, so this is IntelliJ IDEA. And yes, do you know that you can also use comments like this to have presentations in your code? So that's a quick way of showcasing your code because as we know, we are working remotely all the time and it's easier if you could quickly cook up a presentation in your editor rather than creating a separate presentation. Okay, so let me start by creating a new class, which is a person. And let me add two fields to it. I say private string name and private int age. And using my, excuse me, using my editor, I could quickly insert, excuse me, methods like constructor and getters and setters. So this is how could quickly do that. And let me add more methods to it. Okay, so I am using a presentation assistant, which you can see would display the shortcut that I would be using during my presentation. So now to insert the code, I am using Alt Insert shortcut, which you can view at the bottom of the screen. Presentation Assistant is a great plugin if you want to display the shortcuts when you are demonstrating your code or when you are working with your colleagues so that they get to know the shortcuts that you use rather than getting interrupted by them all the time. Okay, so let me override the equals and hashcode method. And the last one is to add the toString method. So we are used to do this to create a data class. Of course, the IDE can help you to quickly generate all the code. But what are the drawbacks? The intention is not clear. It doesn't make clear to another person who's reading the code that this class is a data class because as we know, code is written once but read multiple times. So let me go back and delete this class and instead let me create a record with the name person. And now I can say string name and int age. And this is exactly what we did with the person class that we just created. So now we have just a single line of code. Now let me create another class and let's say use person, and where I would create instances of this class. I can say person, person1, or let's say only person. I say new person and I say, okay, so Java and the age is 25. Yes, Java has turned 25 this year. Yeah. Okay, so this is how you create, how you instantiate a record, which is exactly the same you would do for any person class. Now, do you want to see the decompiled version of the record? Let's go back to the project view and let me go to, yes. So this is the decompiled version. And as you can see, this is syntactic sugar. The language gives you a provision to create a record, but the compiler creates a full-fledged class from it. It extends Java lang record, implements serializable, and has a couple of other methods. And we only have the setters and not getters. And that also implies that the fields that we have for records, they are final. So we are creating a shallowly immutable class by using records. So let's go back and see what we covered. So we just covered a new type declaration using records. And can we add fields or methods to a record? Depends whether you are adding an instance field or a static field. I cannot add another instance field to this class because then it would, in this case, I am not using the state that I pass to my record to define the record. So an addition of instance fields or variables is not allowed. Of course, I can use and define static methods to a record. And I could also modify the default behavior of my record. I can generate a constructor by using Alt Enter and Alt Insert, sorry. And I can generate a compact constructor. Note it doesn't have a parenthesis right after the name of the class. And I could verify if any value is not the one that I want. If let's say the age is less than 0, I say throw new illegal argument exception. I say age cannot be less than 0. So this is perfect. I could also add constructors where I could modify the or check the values that I'm receiving for my record person. Now let me create a generic record. So let me go back and let me create a new record and let me name it as parcel. And now I can add a parameter, generic parameter here, and I could say the values, the fields of this record is contents, which is of type T, which I just passed to the record, and I have another field which is, let's say, weight. How would I instantiate that? Let me define just a barebone class table, and let me instantiate this record here. I can say parcel of type table. I say parcel is equal to new parcel, and I pass a new table. and a value to it. Let's say 12.98. So this is how I can create a record which takes in a generic, this is a generic record, and this is how you can instantiate it. So let's go back and see what did we miss. Okay, I can also add annotations to my records. So I could say the field here is not null. And this makes it mandatory for me to add a value to it. And what else? Yes, so the last one that we want to cover here is serializing a record. So let me go to the other class, which I already have. And I have the read write object class. Okay, so I can create I can instantiate my person record here. And let me say person is equal to new person. Okay, and the values are Java and 25. And these are the methods which I've already created to read and write data from a file. Regular methods which we have been using to read and write objects to file. Let's say if that works with records, or do we have to modify our class? So let me call write to files. So I want to write person, and the name of the file that I want to write is, so I already have created a text file. So let's see if I could read that file. So let me say read from file, and let me pass it the file name. And the file name is temp.txt. And let's say if we can run. So read write object. And let's say, what do we have? Okay, so we have an exception here. It says not serializable. Perfect. So let me go back to my class person and make it implement the serializable interface. Let me go back and run the class again and see if we could make it run. Right? So yes. So I can make my record implement the serializable interface, and I could read and write it to a file like I do with my regular objects. And this is a big thing because we don't really have to modify any of the existing code with regards to serialization. Okay, so let's go to the pattern matching, for instance of. This is another feature in Java 14, one of my favorite. So many developers use the instance of operator to check whether a given reference variable is of certain type. They compare a reference variable to a type by using the instance of operator. So let's go to our IDE while we are talking about it. So let me just close this one. And so we've already covered. Okay, so this is the out folder. Pattern matching, yes. So now we are in the pattern matching class. So let me maximize it. Yes. So, excuse me. Okay, so, oh my God. Let me take a sip of water, just a moment. Right. So we were talking about how developers have to use the instance of operator to check whether a given reference variable is of a certain type, and then compare the same reference variable to the type and extract values. So this is usually this is how we do things, have been doing things. So let me say if object instance of, let's say, string, then what do I want to do? I want to instantiate another variable. I say a value, and then I cast my object to string. And then let's say I just want to output the value of the variable a value in its uppercase. I say to uppercase. Right. This has an obvious repetition here. Let's see what the instance of can do, the pattern matching for instance of can do. Now, because as I said, because we have an obvious repetition, let's see if the compiler now can determine whether we want to use another variable and bind that variable to our comparison so that we don't really have to define another variable to do so. I can use Alt Enter and choose the option replace variable with pattern variable. Did you see the difference? Now I have this variable right after the name of the type string, and I don't have to define this variable again on the second line, and I can simply use this variable and call the to uppercase method on it. This might seem quite simple to you, and you might be thinking, oh my god, doesn't has a lot of value, but it does, depends on how you use it. So let me go to class monitor and see if, okay. So in this case, this is how we usually define our equals method. We are comparing the object which is passed to the equals method, and where we check whether it's of the same type. And then we compare the value of the individual fields. But yes, it has a lot of lines of code. Can we do something and reduce it, but still make it readable? So first of all, I'm replacing other with a pattern variable. Then I merge these nested ifs and I simplify the if else. The method that we had earlier has been reduced to just one line of code, but it is still readable and concise and readable. So that's the beauty of using pattern matching for instance of. Excuse me. Let me show you another example, which is in the class prod project. Right. So this is a method which has multiple lines of code and has multiple if conditions. We can see the instance of being called at 2 lines here and here. So let's see how I can simplify this. Let me first of all replace child nodes with a pattern variable. I can use Alt Enter and replace this with a pattern variable. Now let me go to the first line and merge the nested ifs. Then I go to this line and I can I can inline this variable by using the shortcut Control Alt N. Okay, so I just refactored this. Now, you can see that this is being highlighted in yellow color, which really means that IntelliJ IDEA is hinting you that there is something that you can do about the code to improve it. So let me go to letter code, press Alt Enter, and it gives me the option of replacing letter node with a pattern variable. When I do so, wow, so that's gone as well. And this variable is here now. Now, let me go back to line number 1 and merge these if statements. Again, I can use Alt Enter and merge the nested ifs. Can you see the difference now? From the multiple lines of code that we had initially, we are just down to 3 lines of code. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's not about just making your code concise, but still keeping it readable. So that's how pattern matching for instance of can be used with the other parts of your code. Of course, there are efforts being made to extend pattern matching, for instance, of to switch expressions. I would cover switch expressions in Java 14, uh, but with the next versions of Java, you would be able to see how switch expressions, pattern matching, they really help you to have find out the type of your variable and then do some, of course, processing with it, which is not possible now. Okay, so that's one last point that I want to cover for pattern matching, for instance of, which is the scope of the pattern variable. So in this case, the scope is limited to the if part in this statement. If what happens if I try to access, let's say if I say else, a value, okay, else a value, okay, I was trying to figure out why is IntelliJ IN not picking it up. But yes, that is what it is, because I cannot access a value in the else part. It doesn't exist. But what if I, let's say, I say ABC, I know not a good value to be assigned, but let's say what IntelliJ is suggesting, it says I could create a parameter, or I could rename the reference, or I could create a field. Now, this could be confusing if you do not understand how the pattern variable works, because in this case, it is a field now and with the same name as the pattern variable. So when I'm in the if block, I'm referring to the pattern variable, but when I am in the else block, I am referring to the field and not the pattern variable. So of course, this could be confusing, but yes, if you just know bits and pieces, you are good to go. So that's all about pattern matching, for instance of. Let me move to the text blocks. So this is one of my favorites. So let's see, do we already have something? No, we don't. Okay, that is okay. So what did I just do? Yes. So text blocks is another way of storing your long strings. So let's see how what the problem is. Okay, so let me define a variable string. I say text, and let's compare this one to a small k. Let's say I am I am a toddler, newborn. Okay, newborns are the cutest, so let's keep it to a newborn. So what happens when the child grows? They no longer are cute. They become, I don't want to use a lot of words here. So let's say, okay, I am a newborn, but now I just started to crawl. And what happens next? I am a teen now. Lovely. And I'm learning a lot of new languages. Can you see how the string is growing and it's not more readable, and it's starting to get out of comprehension? So let's add some more languages to it. So I have a file queries, and let me just, okay, so where the file is. Okay, so now let me add this JSON value to this piece of text here. Wow, doesn't it look beautiful? Now I cannot understand anything because I get a new language, I get a long string, and I get uh, double quotes which have to be escaped using backslash. Ah, this looks nice. What can I do here? Let me see if I could replace that with a text block. Wow. Even though it is not so much readable, because of course I made some goof ups while I was typing it, but still it's much better. So let me just format this one. So this looks better now. So this is the exact problem which text blocks they are trying to solve when you are talking about longer strings which use another language like JSON or SQL or HTML or in any other piece of code. Then the best way to use is text blocks rather than using the regular strings. But yes, it's not another type of string that Java is using. It is still the same string. Um, and it uses another delimiter. With the regular strings, you use a single quote to start and end your strings. But with the text block, you use three double quotes. I know, a tongue twister, but that's the way how it is. And the value starts right after on the next line, because if I take it to the same line, that would be an error. So this is how you have to code a text block. And what happens to the incidental white space? If you can see, you have this vertical line which shows exact value that goes into the text block. What happens, let's say, if I move this brace to the left? Now my vertical line is here. That means the text block would include all these white spaces for all the lines. So this is how you can view how your white spaces are treated. And just in case if you are not able to use text blocks because you are on a previous version of Java, you can still use the language injection, which is available in IntelliJ IDEA. So let me copy the same string and let's say I say JSON is equal to, so this is a regular string, and I could inject language or reference here, and I could say that this is JSON. Okay, now I can get help for the language that I just injected. If you see a small red bar here which says something is missing, and if you look closely, I missed a comma for the JSON value. So this is how you could still use the JSON value. Um, the the formatting was a bit off. Let me use another value uh, or use the same one. Okay, so I can say string JSON val is equal to, no. Oh, so there's something, I guess, with the latest version, which I updated right before my demo. Not a good thing to do. Okay, so we just covered text blocks, and these are some of the values that you can use to store your text blocks, and you would still get the same formatting that you can see right now without all the bumbo jumbo. Uh, okay, so let's go to the switch expressions. So with Java 14, switch expressions is a standard feature. It's no longer in the preview, and we would cover what a preview feature is, I guess, in a few minutes. So let's see, how do we go about switch expressions? Okay, so this is a class where I have an enum, single-use plastic, and this is a method which uses this enum value to figure out an value and assign that to the variable damage here. So this is a variable which is assigned a value depending on the value which is passed to the method. And of course, we must have the break statement for each case label. Otherwise, so what happens? Let me just take off this break statement. In this case, the variable damage would be assigned a value 10, even though you would pass a plate value to this method. So This is one of the problems which are taken care of by switch expressions. So in this case, of course, as is visible, we are assigning a value to a variable, but still we are not able to return something from this code block. So this is what exactly what switch expression can do for you. So let's replace this with a switch expression. So this is how simple and concise it can get. You get rid of the break statements, and you can assign value to your variable without using all the additional code which was there for the regular switch statements. Of course, the switch statement that you have now is not going away. You can use both the versions. And just in case if you are wondering whether you can only return one value or you could have more code here, yes, you can. So let's say I could even define a new variable. I can go out for a walk. But what I have to remember to do is to return a value, because I would still need to assign or return value from this switch expression, because this is how it is working right now. It is returning a value which from this method by using this switch expression. And what happens if you have the same value returned from two case labels? Can you merge the case labels? Yes, you can. So now you could also have multiple case labels. In this case, default is redundant because we are already covering all the values of the enum single use plastic. But what happens for values or types such as int or string, which can be passed to switch statements? In that, in those cases, we would need to have a default case because it is not possible to cover all the exhaustive cases. And if you are returning a value, the switch expression must return a value in all the cases. Okay, I guess that's all for the switch expression. So now, okay, we've already done the demo. And yes, I used just the basic examples for covering all these topics for Java 14. If you are interested, you can access the blog in the screencast, which I did some time back for Java 14 with IntelliJ IDEA. I mentioned a couple of times that the features like records or pattern matching for instance of and text block, they are preview language feature. And what does that essentially means? It means that the feature is complete, but it is not permanent in the language. And the reason why it is done is unlike APIs, which can be deprecated in future when you have better APIs to replace them, language features cannot be deprecated. So a lot of thought has to go in before making any language feature permanent in Java, because once it goes in, it cannot be taken off. And the other important thing is a language feature would interact with all the other language features which are already existing in Java. So if you have any feedbacks on the preview language feature, please make sure you submit those to Oracle, because they are actively looking for the feedback by the developers on real use cases. So this is one of the tweets by Brian, who leads the project Amber at Oracle. He mentioned about looking for developer feedback on the latest Java features. So this is about switch expressions, which was a long time back, but this applies to all the preview language features. So I also asked him, so is there a deadline that he's looking at to accept the feedback? So he said there's no hard deadline, but yes, of course, the sooner the better, as he said. Okay, so I again asked him for text blocks. Okay, so that was Java 14. Now let's cover what are the new language features in Java 15. Again, how to find what's new. My go-to resources are the OpenJDK page, website, and again, the link which I shared for Java 14 to find out the differences between APIs, how it has changed from 14 to 15. Okay, now let's dive into the new language features in Java 15. So we have sealed classes and interfaces. Again, it's a preview language feature. So we have seen that the preview language feature have been in preview for twice or thrice. There are no hard rules for that, whether a preview language feature would be in preview for twice or thrice. That really depends on when the feature is stable. Once it's stable, it's good to go in the language. And there have been cases where a preview language feature has changed depending on the feedback which was received on those features, like the switch expressions, which I just covered. Uh, Initially, it used the break keyword to return a value from a case label, but then it was changed to yield because the developers complained that they are getting confused between using break to return a value and using break otherwise. So yes, Oracle is listening. So if you have any feedback, please submit it to the on the mailing list. Okay, so let's talk about the sealed interface and classes. So let me go back to my demo and okay. So how do you define who can extend your class or whether you can extend a class or not? So we are going from none to everyone that can extend my class. So if I define my class as final, then of course no other class can extend it. But I could limit the number of classes that extended by defining with a default modifier. Then it means it could be extended only by the classes in the same package. If I define it with protected modifier, then classes from other packages can also extend it. So there are various levels, but still I cannot define or designate the classes which could extend a type that I just created. Probably I'm creating a secret formula and I only want it to be extended by a certain designated classes. So that's what I can do with the sealed types. So let me define new class and I say the name of my class is, let's say, plant. This is a public class. If I add the reserved keyword sealed to it, it becomes a sealed class. But that is not how you would define a sealed class. You would also have to define which class can extend this class. So let's say I create a subclass here and let me name the subclass as a herb. Okay, so it says public class herb extends plant, but what is missing is this class should be this class should be included in the list. So I need to add a permits clause here, and I have to say this class would be allowed to be extended by the class herb. Now I have to go back to my class herb and see what IntelliJ is asking me to do it. Okay, so either the class should be final, it could be non-sealed, or it could be sealed. So what happens if I define it as final? Okay, so this is good to go. I have a public class plant which permits extension by class herb, and class herb is a final class. So let's say I want to add mm, another type to it, and let me define this type. Okay, so I say insert a new Java class. I say creeper. Okay. I say public class creeper extends plant. Perfect. Now, what can I do with it? Either I could make it non-sealed or sealed again. If I make it sealed, that means I again want to define or designate a couple of classes which can extend my creeper class. And if I make it non-sealed, this is good to go. So this is non-sealed and this is where it is. Okay, so herb is final. Of course, it puts an end to the hierarchy now. Now I cannot extend this class. But of course, a null-sealed class could be extended. And a sealed class, of course, it would follow the same pattern again. So we have multiple combinations and variations for the sealed classes and interfaces. Again, that would the similar case for interfaces. I could define a sealed interface and then define the hierarchies where which I want to implement. And again, that would go with the same things again. Now let me go to records in Java 15. Do I have anything else? No. Okay, so the records is in the second preview in Java 15 and it has a couple of modifications, which are now I can create and use local records. So this is a local record. And with that, I could also, with introduction of local records, Java also now supports local interfaces and local enums, which was not allowed earlier. And that could really help you to, again, for the same purpose that you use local classes. So now you can create local records as well. So, okay, so yes, so this is one important configuration for IntelliJ IDEA that I would like to mention. So I was using um, so the language, project language level is 15 when you use 2020.1. And of course, I'm using JDK 15 to support all the features in Java 15 that I used. And when IntelliJ IDEA would have the next release, depending on how the features change, the preview features change, it might drop support of the previous preview feature because records are modified in Java 15 and it would be, I would say, insane to kind of support how records were supported in 14. So when we have a new version of IntelliJ IDEA with the modifications in a preview language feature, we support the latest version and not the previous version. Of course, the previous version would include the changes. So that's how it is. Okay, so let me go back. Do I have? Okay. So with this, I come to the end of my presentation. Let me switch on my video now. Yes, yes. Hi.
All right. All right. That one great, Mala. Thank you for the demos. And I'm always surprised how fast the folks at JetBrains are with supporting these new features within the IDE. So it's basically it's already out there before the Java version is there and out of EA. So great demos.
Right.
I have a couple of questions. And I think these questions are quite straightforward. But one that was interesting was from Nick, and he was asking on records.
Mhm.
Why don't records follow the bean convention, like get age instead of age? Do you know why, for instance?
No, I don't. I remember seeing an article somewhere, but that was, I'm sorry, I don't remember because that was a long discussion on the OpenJDK thread, if I'm not wrong, but I missed reading the whole of it. But probably if I could share the answers with you later, I could do that.
Yeah, okay. No, maybe you knew by heart, but it's
Mhm.
it's an interesting one. I know. Well, we can speculate on a lot of things, but I would say if you don't need a get, why should you use it? But fair enough. Um, Using records make your custom record final and so not extendable. But what if we still want to use polymorphism?
Um, when I showed the decompilation of the record, so it, let me go back.
Yeah, sure.
Um, so I had the person here, record, and when I say, right, because a person class, a person record would extend Java lang record by default. It is not possible to extend another record or class as of now. I'm not sure if this could be taken care of in the future releases, but as of now, you cannot do that. So, because you cannot create a hierarchy with records, so we really can't talk about polymorphism here.
Yeah, okay, yeah, fair point. Um, you were talking about preview features and how that works and why it is. I think that is very insightful because well, people now know why our Oracle is doing these kind of things. But what would
Mm,
you suggest by if I am currently on Java 14 and I'm using that? Should you
right,
shouldn't I use records, for instance? Because for me it feels like um, things can change basically,
right.
and for a good reason. So, what is your view on that? If I need to go into production with stuff, should I use a record or should I use multi-line strings, or you would you say just try it out but don't use it in production? I'm in between. So, what's your point of view on that?
I agree with you, Brian, because we are talking about preview language features which can change in future Java versions. So I would not recommend any developer to go into production with the preview language features because for the obvious reasons. But I would for sure recommend and encourage programmers, developers to use those preview language features on their code locally, because if they see any serious issues with the language feature, of course, it would be great to have it reported rather than living with it whole of their life and then kind of cribbing about it later. Oh my God, Java has XYZ, which we don't like. So now is the time to contribute by trying out the features, but of course, not in production, not in production.
Oh well, I think your unit test code or your test code would be a perfect example for that. I mean, for instance, I could personally use these multi-line strings nowadays to mimic, for
Mm.
instance, a certain JSON file, or if I need it needs to go in my input. But I agree with you that people should use it just to provide feedback, and so we make the language better, right?
Yes, yes.
Um, Let me just check. I had another few things tagged, and there's so much going on. There's a lot of chatter going on in the live session. People loved your talk and the demo. So thank you for that. Oh, let's get back to the poll. I put up a poll while you were asking about the Java versions, and both people responded in the chat on YouTube and here in the chat on Slack. And what I see is there is, well, it's evenly distributed between Java 8 and Java 11, and a bunch of people are also or are working on Java 14. So
Wow.
which I guess is reasonable, right?
Right, right.
One question for
Absolutely.
one question from my side. Say you are on Java, not say, Java 12 or 13. Would it can you upgrade to 14, or when 15 is general available? Can I update to that newer version without any pain?
That would really depend on your code base, because I just mentioned that switch expressions, when they were initially out, they used the break keyword to return a value from a label, from a branch. But later it was changed to yield. So if you are using those kind of cases which has changed, then of course you will have to change your code base. But otherwise they are just not a lot of those instances. But if you are not using any of those, of course you can just change to your new version.
Yeah, great mentioning the yield, of course. Yeah. Um, well, there was a lot of discussion, other questions, and for a few of the folks jumped in. I saw that even your colleague Trisha jumped in with a few
Oh,
answers here and there. So thank you
thanks
all for
Trisha.
thank you all for participating in this. And if you have more questions, please feel free to put them in the Slack channel once you're there, and somebody will pick it up, or we move it forward, or well, that's how community works. If you ask a questions and we can answer them, we love to do that. Don't forget, I put on the Slack channel general, I put up a raffle for the 3 JetBrains licenses, and they will be automatically drawn on Monday. So that will be Monday, the 31st of August, if I'm not mistaken. And for now, our time is basically up. So Mala, I want to thank you for this great session and the demos, because the demos made it more insightful, and how you can use, for instance, that instance of thing, like how you can use that in
Right.
certain ways. And I honestly love it. So thank you for your presentation. And I would say for you, it's already very, very late. So good night.
Thank you so much, Brian. It was a pleasure to be here. And absolutely, as you mentioned, the examples that we use really make a difference in how we can use any feature in our application. And that's what makes it relevant. Thank you so much. I loved presenting today.
Yes, and we love having you here. We will have some new sessions coming up. We are already arranging new sessions, so please make sure to watch the website and watch the meetup group. So we are so you basically know what's coming up. We have a bunch of people already in the pipeline for the next month and already for October. So we will keep you updated. But if you follow the meetup group, and make sure that you follow the Slack channel, because we will announce it there, and of course on Twitter. If you have any feedback, please put them on Slack or on Twitter. Mala's on Twitter as well. If you have direct questions, feel free to come with questions if you see this afterwards. The stream will be live directly, and I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks all for watching. Thank you, Mala, and see you all at the next session. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.